It was supposed to be a weekend getaway. Instead, it became the start of a 22-year nightmare. The sun had barely risen over Guntersville Lake when the first signs appeared: a broken screen door, a trail of blood, and a pair of shoes left neatly by the shoreline, as if their owner had simply walked into the mist and vanished forever. Her name was Wanda Jean Mays, 26 years old, beautiful, ambitious, with a smile that could disarm anyone. She had her whole life ahead of her. But that night in 1986, something happened inside the quiet lakeside home where she was staying. Something so sudden, so violent, that it would spark decades of fear, suspicion, and unanswered questions. Police found no body, no signs of a struggle, except for one chilling clue: blood smeared across the porch and the glass. It wasn't enough to tell them what happened, but it was enough to suggest one horrifying possibility. Did Wanda stumble into the water after a terrifying accident, or was she pushed? Theories multiplied. Some swore they heard screams in the early hours. Others claimed Wanda had been acting strangely, as if afraid of something or someone she couldn't talk about. Then there was the locked bedroom and the open window that looked out over a sheer drop to the rocky lakeshore. For years, her disappearance haunted Guntersville. Search teams scoured the lake, combed the woods, and dragged the waters. But there was nothing. No body, no trace, just whispers in coffee shops and sleepless nights for her family. And then, in 2003, bones were found deep in a ravine not far from that same lake. It would take 5 more years for forensic science to confirm the truth. They belonged to Wanda Jean Mays. But here's the part that no one saw coming. The official ruling wasn't murder. It wasn't suicide. It wasn't even suspicious. Investigators called it an accidental fall. Really? Because if it was truly an accident, why was there blood on the porch? Why was her bedroom locked from the inside? And why, in the days before she vanished, was Wanda telling friends she felt uneasy, like something bad was about to happen? The answers may be buried with Wanda, but one thing is certain: the story of her disappearance is far darker and far stranger than the official report suggests. And if you think the mystery ends here, it doesn't. Because there's one final piece of evidence, one detail, that changes everything you think you know about that night. Hours before she vanished, Wanda Jean Mays was restless. Friends later described her as distracted, glancing at the door, as if she was expecting someone. At dinner, she barely touched her food. She kept looking out toward the lake, her eyes following the flickering reflections of the dock lights on the water. What was she thinking about? Who was she waiting for? That night, she stayed at her aunt and uncle's lake house, a place she'd visited before, a place that should have felt safe. But around 3 a.m., something happened that shattered the stillness. A noise, muffled, sharp, startled her relatives from their sleep. But when they called her name, there was no response. By morning, Wanda's bed was empty, the sheets rumpled. The night air still carried the faint scent of her perfume. And then there was the window, wide open, the curtains swaying gently in the cool breeze, framing a sheer drop to the jagged rocks below. If she fell from that height, how could she have walked away? The investigation quickly hit a wall. Without a body, detectives were left with theories, and theories alone. But some of those theories were disturbing. A man who knew Wanda claimed she had been asking strange questions about getting away from someone in the days before she disappeared. Others spoke of a secret relationship she'd been keeping hidden. Then there was the call, A single phone call Wanda made just 48 hours before she vanished, to someone police have never publicly identified. Was she reaching out for help or arranging to meet someone? While the official story leaned toward a tragic accident, whispers in town painted a different picture, one involving fear, secrecy, and the possibility that Wanda didn't leave the house willingly that night. Years would pass before the discovery of her remains, but even then, the physical evidence left just as many questions as answers. There was no conclusive proof she'd fallen by mistake, and no clear sign of foul play either. It was a mystery suspended between two truths, and no one could say for certain which was real. But there was still one more lead. Something recovered near the site where her bones were found. Something that didn't belong in the wilderness, and something that could point to exactly who was with Wanda the night she vanished. It was late autumn of 2003 when a pair of hikers stumbled across the first clue in years, a weathered fragment of bone jutting out from loose soil. Investigators arrived expecting nothing more than a wild animal's remains, but within hours they realized this was human, and it wasn't alone. Scattered nearby were more bones, tangled in roots and leaves, spread out as though someone or something had dragged them downhill. But amid the skeletal remains, there was something else, something that didn't belong in the wild. A small, metallic object, worn smooth by time, but unmistakably human-made. It was a piece of jewelry, delicate, feminine, and broken in two. Family members would later confirm Wanda owned something just like it. This discovery raised an uncomfortable question. If Wanda had truly fallen to her death, how did her jewelry end up broken and so far from her bones? Had it been torn off in a struggle or ripped away during a frantic escape? When the remains were officially identified in 2008, the cause of death was still listed as an accident, but locals weren't buying it. Some pointed to strange inconsistencies in the timeline. A fisherman swore he saw a woman matching Wanda's description on the shoreline hours after she supposedly vanished. Another claimed he spotted a car parked on a narrow dirt road near the ravine, a car that sped away as soon as he approached. These accounts never made it into the official report. And then there was the issue of the window, not just open, but pushed outward so forcefully that part of the frame had splintered. Could Wanda have done that alone? Or was someone trying to get in? Or get her out? Privately, even some investigators admitted they had doubts. The location where her remains were found was steep, treacherous, and hidden. If she'd fallen there in the dark, the odds of anyone finding her, let alone within hours, were slim. So how did her name enter local conversation almost immediately after she disappeared? Who was fueling those rumors before any official word was out? One detective, speaking years later, hinted at something more sinister. He claimed there were people with a vested interest in keeping Wanda's death labeled as an accident. He wouldn't say who, he wouldn't say why, but the way he said it, you could tell he believed it. And there was still one question no one could answer. If it was an accident, why were there signs she fought so hard before she vanished? By the time the coroner closed the file in 2008, the official narrative was neat, tidy, and easy to digest. Wanda Jean Mays slipped or fell in the darkness, and no one was to blame. But outside the official paperwork, the story was anything but simple. Those who knew Wanda refused to let go of the lingering contradictions. Why had she been so tense in the days before her trip? Who was she talking to on the phone just hours before she vanished? Why did her jewelry show up broken, far from where her body lay? And why did witnesses see things that didn't line up with the accident theory sightings, vehicles, strange noises. Some whispered that Wanda had uncovered something she wasn't meant to know. Others believed she'd been trying to escape a threat no one else could see, the kind that doesn't leave fingerprints but leaves you looking over your shoulder. Then there's the most haunting possibility of all, that someone was with her in those last moments and that person walked away untouched. No court case, no charges, no justice, just silence. Her family was left to mourn with only fragments, a broken piece of jewelry, a ravaged skeleton, and questions no one in power seemed willing to chase. Even now, decades later, you can feel the unease in the air around Guntersville Lake. Locals will lower their voices when her name comes up, their words slowing as if someone might overhear. The truth is buried there, in the trees, in the rocks, in the cold, black water. And maybe, in the end, that's the most chilling part of all. If Wanda's story could be dismissed so easily, how many other accidents are really something far darker? If you believe Wanda Jean Mays' case deserves another look, share this story. Talk about it. Keep her name alive. Don't let quiet deaths stay quiet forever. And if you want more true stories like this, mysteries, cold cases, and shocking found-alive moments, subscribe, hit the bell, and join us as we uncover what others would rather keep hidden.